But I used to do that, and then one of my friends said, you have to, this is a chance for you to become more conscious in your dream state. Why don't you use it for learning? See, why don't you find someone in your dream state and ask them to teach you something? So the first time I did that, I was going up an escalator, and there was a guy coming down the opposite way on the escalator. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he turned away, and I said, wait, stop, you have to teach me something. So I ran down the escalator the opposite way, and I caught up with him, and I said, wait, this is my dream, but I needed someone to teach me something. So he took off his head, and he threw it. So it took me a long time to understand what he was trying to teach me. And what he was trying to teach me is that the cognitive mind is actually, and this is, I'll get to some of the authors who talk about this too, the cognitive mind is an implant or a projected reality that isn't really your consciousness. Your consciousness is the seat of the soul, which is more in the thymus or heart area. So the consciousness is actually a linear program implant which you can transcend by becoming fully conscious. So in Buddhism they say master your mind or your mind will master you. Because the mind is basically runs on the projections, expectations, judgments, conclusions of all the causal reality, which is all the implanted and impelled points of view of all the people who have ever lived. And you think that's your thoughts, but it's not. It's most of the thoughts you have all day and all the feelings and the emotions you have are just implanted and impelled point of views based on all the people's realities that they're making real, which are not real.
They came before you.
Yeah, they came before you. So everything that came before you is
so-called linear time.
Yeah. So it's all a projection. It's all an expectation and a judgment. It's not real. We can call it a phantom reality or a virtual vibrational reality or whatever we want to call it. But it's not real because it's what was the probabilities, not the possibilities. And once you become fully conscious, you become what's possible, which is infinity. So we don't.
By the way, the interesting thing about that too, Tim, is that if that premise is correct, which there are a number of, you as well as a number of other people, would submit that it is. That is one more piece of evidence, one more strong piece of evidence that time is an illusion, because some of these, thoughts and feelings and archetypes and all of these things could be coming from people that lived in linear time 5 or 6 or 7,000 years ago.
Yes.
And you're experiencing them instantaneously on the so-called now moment, which means that your now is their past, which then makes it even more, irrelevant, if you would, in the notion of linear time. But anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Yes. So that's basically why you want to become good at lucid dreaming and astral projection. Because in your waking state, if you become fully conscious, which you'll get glimpses of the more you do the lucid dream state, because what it does is it wakens you up to the three-dimensional reality that we live in, which is the three folds of reality, which they call the threefold earth we live on, or the threefold. Anyway, that's getting a deep Buddhist thing that would take hours to discuss. But Buddhism basically said all this stuff 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, if time exists. But it is now being proved by science as not some hokey mystical stuff. It's just what we get if we become conscious, and that's really my goal of everything I do. All my music since I've been writing since I was 10 years old, and I wrote over 60 songs, is to help people become conscious. And I didn't even know half the shit I was writing about back then, because there wasn't books about these kind of things. And then 10 years after I write a song, I read a book, I'm like, that's what I wrote the song about. And I couldn't really explain, what was I channeling? Well, according to the Rolling Stones singer, yes, he channeled all of his songs. And some people believe that the guy who was the actor in the Shakespeare plays, who was called Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, actually wrote the plays that he was starring in, which he was illiterate, and he never wrote a letter to anyone, and he never received a letter from anyone in his life, and he never even signed his name to anything except his will and his and one other lawsuit that he did. So and all of his plays were published 7 years after he died, which he didn't even know about, and they weren't even titled in his name. They were titled in a mythological character called, which was who shook spears, and that's why they called it Shakespeare with a hyphen. Not his name was Shakespeare. Anyway, so channeling is just becoming conscious of all the other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions throughout time, which time doesn't exist. So you can channel. That's why my next book is called Channeling Sir Francis Bacon, which I believe is the true author of the Shakespeare plays, which a lot of people do believe, because he's the only one who was able to write such things, because the guy Shakespeare, William, had nothing remotely worth education in his life, and he barely spoke English well. And he also never wrote a letter, and he never... Can you imagine the greatest playwright in all of history never receiving a letter or writing a letter to anyone in history? That's kind of either he was a man who fell to earth or he was a fictitious character.
Right. The other thing interesting about all of Shakespeare's plays, and I mean every single one of them, I don't know about the sonnets, but every single one of them is a variation of a Greek play.
Yes.
From before.
And he didn't speak Greek.
I mean, they changed characters, they added a few things here and there, but the Greek tragedies and the Greek comedies and so forth are paralleled in Shakespeare. So I'm not saying they're not witty and they're not wonderful and they're not clever, as Bacon certainly is, but you talk about Ecclesiastes, where there's nothing new under the sun that makes you, gives you pause for that,
Yeah.
to think about, and it kind of punctuates your point earlier about these thoughts already existed, and a lot of people are channeling in on them. And by the way, we're coming up on another break, and I said earlier that I was going to take this break a few minutes ago so I could play that 29-minute segment, but I thought it'd be more appropriate because that would have almost run us right up to the end of the show.
Okay.
So we're gonna take that shortest file, and we're gonna play roughly about 15 minutes of it, and then you and I can comment on that, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show.
Cool.
At the end of that, and then also give the audience different ways to do this. And by the way, folks, we're going to play all these files on Genjin at 3 p.m. This week, all three of them, so including what you're going to hear here as well. But we're going to play a portion of the shorter one, and then Tim and I are going to comment on that, and then wrap this up. But right now, folks, we're ready actually to take our last commercial break, and we're going to run the show right up until 8:30, and we will be right back after about 2 minutes commercial break. Please stay by. Are we clear?
You threw me off, Joe. I was expecting to play that file now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, no, I that's what I said to you is I'll cue you to play it. But I thought we were going to do the commercials first.
Are you ready to do that?
Okay, so we're not going to have any commercials?
I'm playing, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll come back whenever you're ready with the commercials, and then I'll introduce this. And Tim, what is the name of this, and what is the flavor of this particular file?
Okay, it's like a meditation. I don't want to call it a meditation because a meditation is a definition, and all definitions are limitations. So it's like a meditation. It's like a hypnosis, but it's not hypnosis because it's not defined by this reality yet. But it's a thing that'll take you into a deep state where you could leave your body if you are willing to leave your body, and it might take a while. But I have four audios to get people deeper into it, because the first one, the first time they get into it might not.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Okay. Just cue me, Lucy, when we're live. And so, folks, we're back, and this again is your host, Dr. Joe Donlin, and we're here with Tim Janakos, and this is our final segment of the show tonight. We run right up until And again, I'm Eastern Daylight Savings Time here, and we're going to run it right up until 8:30 p.m. And we're going to play a portion of a file that you're going to be able to listen to, and we're going to play all three of these larger files, this one here and two other larger ones at 3 p.m. This week, so you'll be able to tune into them. But we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of this, and it's almost defies explanation. It's a bit of a meditation. It's a bit of almost like a hypnosis and so forth. But we've been talking about, in generality, within lucid dreaming in different ways to kind of enter into another dimension, if you would. And this is actually going to be a little bit of the instructions. So you can listen to this. Tim and I will comment on this before we end the show tonight, as well as giving you ways to, hear this again and get on Tim's website as well. But we want to give you a flavor of what this is, and the other two as well. So I think if the studio is ready to cue that up, why don't we cue that up and then maybe do about 15 minutes of that, and then you and I will talk about it, if that makes sense.
Great. Everyone just relax when you listen to it and lay back if you can.
This is your time to experience an unlimited existence, free from the
Can you hear it, Joe?
Yes.
Of your physical body, and free from all social constructs of space and time. Don't worry, throughout this journey, I, your host, Tim Janakos, from Time Without Beginning, make sure we bring you back to this, your comfortable reality, in about 40 minutes, and I will stay with you the whole way and bring you back hand in hand. Don't worry also, if you fall asleep or think you are drifting off during this journey, just let whatever happens on this journey happen, and let go of any need to judge it or worry about how you react or don't react to it. Just let it be. With you, and we can't be separated or disconnected from the co-creating of this moment together by any means. We ask, if possible, that you enjoy this journey in a safe, comfortable place. It's best to listen to this audio in headphones to block out all distracting background noises, so you can go deep into your highest consciousness, your true being, free from your physical body, and just continue at your own pace during this in and out, down and out. If you like to visualize, you can visualize what I'm saying. And you can visualize the energy washing through your body in any color. But if you are like me and not a visual person, just embrace the person without the need to see it visually. Just right away or right. Just have faith that the way you are learning.
I'm getting a lot of feedback on this, Joe. The audio quality is not all that great.
Yeah. And maybe I'm going to need a break in.
You just fade it out and then,
Okay.
give me a second.
Yeah, folks, we are having some difficulty getting that audio to play clearly here where we're broadcasting it here on Skype. So we're going to stop that earlier, but you can listen to this, and we're going to give you the websites. First of all, we'll play this again on Genjin as soon as we can figure out a way to get the audio clear without some of the I am hearing background hits. But we're going to also give you the websites on that. But Tim, given the fact that we get a lot of feedback from our listeners that wasn't very clear, and I appreciate, by the way, the feedback. Always, obviously, the show was for you folks, and so glad that you quickly respond. So Tim, maybe you can kind of explain what the purpose of that is and how you're going about it. Obviously, trying to get to a relaxation mode to enter this, but in your own words, what is it that you wanted to convey in that segment?
Okay, so it was like a meditation. So the good thing is I have all three of the audios also for a very short time on my YouTube video channel, which is youtube.com/Tim Janakos, Tim Janakos, TIMJANAKOS. But each one of those will take you deeper into. So some people can go lucid on the first one. Some people can go lucid after listening to the first two, and some people can't until the third one. And some people after listening to all three can't even do it. But the thing is, what will happen for a lot of people is you listen to one of them and you go to sleep, you'll be more likely in your dream state to realize there's something wrong and it's not a real waking reality. So that's how you become conscious in your dream. Also, in the book, the phase by the School of Out of Body Experience, or OB, Out of Body Experience, yes, School of Out of Body Experience. They teach how to go into the phase state at the point when you wake up, which I'm not really good at. They call that indirect technique of entering the phase state, which if you wake up and a lot of people wake up and they feel like they're trapped, or they feel like someone's sitting on their chest, which science calls, sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
In other mystical traditions, they called it all the hag, something sitting on your chest, some lady. A lot of people in that state think they're getting abducted by aliens, and they might well be, but most of them aren't. Also, in that state, many people think they're talking to gods, which is most of all the revelations in the Bible, or in different traditions of religion, is in the phase state consciousness, according to the School of Out of Body Experience. But whether that's true or not, I'm not going to make a judgment, because all judgments are limitations, and all beliefs are limitations. So, as an infinite being and an unlimited being, I want to be free to accept any alternate view of reality that is presented to me, if it's worth buying or worth playing with for a while. So in these meditations, if you want to call them that, I don't like to call them that only because it brings to mind all the limitations of meditations. And if you've ever done a meditation and you said, I'm not good at meditations, then you're going to think you're not going to be good at this. Or if you've done hypnosis and you say, oh, I can't be hypnotized, then you think you're not going to be good at this. So it's neither hypnosis, in the Buddhist sutras, there's something called the 32 negations, which is how the Buddha describes who he is. He says, I'm neither here, neither there, I'm neither coming, I'm neither going, I'm neither tall, I'm neither short, I'm neither round, I'm neither square. He goes through every possibility of what physical reality could be, or a conscious reality could be, if time were true, because he says, I'm neither here or there, I'm neither, And by negating everything, he finally comes to the truth, which is, I am that I am, which is in the Bible. But in Buddhism, it's more like I be that I be. Because it's being, or being conscious, is what you truly... So what is the guy? I think, therefore I am. Thinking is...
That was Descartes.
Yeah, Descartes. Thinking is actually not even consciousness. Most of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are projections and expectations and judgments that you're picking up from people around you. That's why your head's on top of your body. It's like a big cell phone tower. It's picking up all the information around you. So if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden think, I'm hungry for Mexican food, you might become aware that there's probably about 50 people around you that are thinking about Mexican food, and that's why you're thinking of Mexican food at that time. Or there might be a Mexican restaurant by, and you're perceiving that there's a Mexican restaurant. That's why you become all of a sudden hungry for Mexican food. So the meditations will allow you to let go of that mind, but I don't want to call them meditations, because a lot of it it's program thinking. And one of the other guys that I wanted to talk about, he wrote many books. One of them is The Crack in the Cosmic Egg. You're probably familiar with the book.
Very familiar. In fact, I know the author.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a great Chilton Pierce.
Chilton Pierce, yeah. Joseph Chilton Pierce.
and we've exchanged many emails
Cool.
and talked about our latest books.
Cool.
It's wonderful.
So Joseph Shilton Pearce says that the enemy to biological evolution is culture, and culture is
the whole thing about the culturation.
yeah. So culture is all the expectations, judgments, conclusions, projections, computations, linearities, concentricities, form structures, significances of everyone's thoughts and emotions through all times in the place you live, so that it's controlling you into a causal reality which doesn't really exist if you step out of causal reality.
He and I have actually talked about this very topic together, and we call it metaprogramming.
Yeah.
And I have passed on to him, which I think he agrees with, that it is a vibration, it is the collective vibration of society which tries to resonate, if you would, all of its constituents into the same vibration, if you will, to act the same way, because otherwise you're going to have a cacophony and society will fall apart. But unfortunately, that's good for society, but what's good for society is not good for independent thinking, because it actually metaprograms people into this kind of quasi, stupor, if you would, and you follow the crowd.
Yeah.
And it prevents individual thinking, but interesting.
So what happened with that guy in my lucid dream when I finally just started to stop having sex with everyone and tried to learn in my lucid dream, when he threw his head off, is basically what I've learned is the cognitive mind. If you can shut off the cognitive mind, you can actually become fully conscious, because the cognitive mind, every time you think, oh, I hate this guy, you might go, wait, do I really hate that guy, or does that guy hate himself? And a lot of times, if someone hates their self, you'll think you hate them because you're picking up their consciousness. You're picking up their thoughts. So it has nothing to do with you, a lot of the prejudices that you have. Or it might be just the projections of all the people around you. So if you're born in a society that thinks they hate certain people based on their color, you might think you hate them because of their color, but you don't really hate them because of your color, but you're picking up the projections and thoughts of the other people. So once you learn to get rid of those, which is what these 3 audios do, then you can actually have your own reality, because your own reality is your points of view create your reality, or in Buddhism we say your karma, which is action, which is, there's 3 parts of action, there's thoughts, words, and deeds, create your reality, creates your what you see around you. So if you can be free to choose your own thoughts and your own projections and your own expectations, it can be so much better than anyone else's, because everyone else is based on their limitations of what happened before. And everything that happened before is culture, is an enemy to biological evolution, because it's keeping us from moving forward, which is what the goal of all culture is to keep things set in one reality. And that's the same thing with all causal reality. It's based on algorithms, which algorithms can only predict what happened in the past. They can't predict the possibilities of the future.
Absolutely.
So,
and you're right, and the future is nothing more than probabilities, and the probabilities themselves are very much influenced by your own attitude about what, and expectations about what that is going to be.
Yeah, but the difference between probabilities and possibilities is probabilities are based on the algorithms, or the what has happened. So if the Beatles were told when they were coming out that there's never been a band in England that would go all around the world and have people screaming and throwing bras at them and doing this because it's never happened, and they believed that, which is another whole other subject we would have to talk about on another call, is did the Beatles really believe that, or was that a program they put out there, which is more of the truth. So they actually created the psychological programming in the first time they landed in JFK, I think it was. They hired a group of college dorms girls, and they paid them all to show up and scream, and that's the projected reality that everyone thought was real. And the same thing happened with David Bowie. When he came to the U.S., they pretended like he was a movie star, and they put him in the top hotels, and they booked him at the top theaters, but he was really an unknown artist. but they created the projected reality that he was a superstar and he became a superstar. And the same thing they did with the Beatles. And it was part of the MI3 and the whole British government trying to use the British invasion as a way to bring back the one arm of the Illuminati, which was lower than the higher arm of the Illuminati, which is in America now. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So
Well, I do remember actually when the Beatles ended up on the Ed Sullivan Show. I think I watched that as a kid, and I mean, you know, we knew of the Beatles by that time. They were a sensation in England. They just hadn't yet come to the United States. So that was interesting.
Well, actually,
But
the sensation that they were in England was actually a fabrication too. So they took photos of people, and they took only the ones where they showed like it looked like there was a large crowd and screaming people, and they made that what was on the news so that they can boost them up because they got hired by EMI, which EMI is, if you listen to the Sex Pistols, Unlimited Supply, EMI, it's just like Warner Brothers in the U.S., it's part of the shadow government which controls people's thinking. So they used it to, although I love the Beatles and I love what they finally broke out of that system. That's why they broke the band up and went their own ways, because they realized they were being manipulated, and they used the last few albums to get away from the manipulation that they were under. But anyway, it's what the MI6 knew, and what the other shadow governments know, is that they can project reality the way they want it, and people will react to it and create that reality. So that's how you actually create reality that's never been created before.
yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. So if we all believe...
I had never heard that about the Beatles. I thought that they were wildly popular in England, but as you said, it's a possibility that that was all staged.
That was mostly staged. And so they brought them to the U.S., and they hired a group of teenage girls to show up at JFK Airport, and you can't get into the by the airplane like that. That's even before TSA and all the other things, you couldn't get there. They hired a busload of girls to come off and show up at the airport and make a photo op and make a video so that they can say this is how famous they already are in the U.S. because they're so famous in the U.K., which everyone they staged in the U.K., they also hired groups of girls and other people to go crazy. And once they did that, it actually happened. So the Ed Sullivan Show, they didn't have to hire girls anymore because everyone looks at TV and they say, that's reality. And if that's reality, we have to conform to that reality. And that's what psychological programming has been done in all cultures, and that's why he says cult is the first word of culture. This Joseph Shilton Pierce says the cult is what culture is. It's a cult. It's cult programming. And if they can project something to come and get enough people to believe it, it'll come. So whether they believe Armageddon's coming, it's going to come if enough people believe it, because that's how reality morphs into what we believe or we project onto it. Because we are transmorphic beings.
Yeah, I could not believe it. I could not agree with you more. And in fact, that's the reason we have many folks that are trying to have meditation for peace.
Yeah.
If we have enough of that, then we're going to go in the right direction. But you're absolutely right. People
Definitely.
that believe in this. You know, the other interesting thing about that, too, is that when you have search engines such as, say, Google, they can influence people so strongly because, let's just say, for example, there's a flu going on. Let's just say it's wintertime and people, are starting to get sniffles, whatever, and they start getting on the internet and checking into what do you do about this type of sniffle, whatever. And now within Google, they're going to see that, and they're going to have more information than the Center for Disease Control about that, and they could start to influence the severity of the flu that particular season by what they do. By having people now start to advertise, you're going to be getting this sniffle, if you get this, take this, and so forth and so on, and actually amplify because it becomes a psychosomatic thing on people. Every time they sneeze, they think, oh, I have the flu. And,
Yes.
and they're going crazy because their mind begins to think this. It's the opposite of the placebo effect. Actually, it is a variation of the placebo effect.
Yes.
And it happens. It's very frightening. It is very frightening. And